Thank you so much, everyone. Wanted to introduce our speaker today, Christel Silver. She's originally from Germany. She's been a real estate professional since 1985, driven by a passion to help clients achieve the American dream and mentor fellow realtors. She leads Silver International Realty in Delray Beach, Florida, with a focus on exceptional personalized service for local and international clients. Before real estate, Christel worked for 17 years in the German Justice Center, where she studied real estate law and taught court apprentices. After moving to the US in 1985, she launched a real estate career in Maryland and Washington, D.C., eventually settling in Florida in 2001. Known for her integrity and dedication, Christel provides expert guidance and builds lasting client relationships. She currently serves as the 2023 to 2027 NAR Global Coordinator for Western Europe. She sits on the South Palm Beach Regional Board and is a director for both NAR and Florida Realtors. In 2024, she was named the Florida Realtor Educator of the Year. Welcome, Christel.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I guess you guys have to make me a co-host to see my picture, or do you see my picture?
I see you.
Okay, good, because I don't know whether I look pretty or whether I can see my face. Let me see. Okay, now I can see me. Okay, I had to change it. Wonderful. So I'm so excited to see a lot of people I know and some new ones.
Yes.
And I hope you all get something out of it. So we want to talk about what it takes or what you need to know to do business with Germans or in Germany or from Germany successfully. Next.
Seconds.
Okay, here's a little map from Germany that you know what we're talking about. And the reason why we are talking about Germany and not Portugal, Antonio, I'm sorry, is Germany is really in the central of Europe, and you can see it's very easy to reach everybody, every other country. And Germany has the strongest economy in Europe. And they are very mobile. They have a lot of money to purchase properties because they are saving a lot of more money than we Americans. They use their credit cards less. And they are really reliable long-term investors. So I hope you feel interested in making strides to get some Germans into your client base. Next. Another reason is, and that's very newest news, is that our governor met with the German ambassador just 3 days ago, or yeah, today's the 26th. And they signed an agreement to have a stronger relationship with Germany, a bit better partnership. So you can expect that there will be new companies opening up in Florida, and hopefully some will be in Punta Gorda or in your neighborhood, and you can get some clients from Germany. Next. Before you understand the Germans and Germany, I do have to go back a little bit in history. As you know, after the Second World War, there were 4 allies: the French, the British, the American, and the Russians, who were the winners of the Second World War, and they divvied up Germany. They took control. There was no police force in Germany, no politicians in Germany allowed to do anything. So they divvied up Germany in 2 pieces. And you can see the Russians were very successful with grabbing the largest piece. The black part was divvied up between the 3 other allies. And it was the British up and the Bavarian on the lower part, and North Rhine-Westphalia was British. But Berlin was right in the middle, of the Eastern Europe portion of Germany. And so they divvied up Berlin also. And it was the same concept. The Russians had part of Berlin, and the other three allies had the rest of Berlin. Now, where did I grow up? I was lucky. You know, when the Allies divvied the country, the city up, I was happening to be in the area where the British took over. So I grew up in West Berlin, but I could have been also living in the other part of Berlin and would have grown up in the DDR. So you know that Germany is now reunified again, but it really is not totally reunified. There are a lot of problems still, like the economy in the East is still lagging behind the economy in the western part of Germany. The people are still talking about the Ossis and the Wessis. Ossis means those who lived in the DDR, and Wessis, those who lived in Western Germany. I guess 1 or 2 more generations and it will be done. But at the moment, you can tell the difference, and the people will tell you automatically where they grew up, whether they grew up in the East or in the West. There also is a language situation, because the people who grew up in the DDR, they never learned English. They learned Russian. While the other part, they grew up with English. So it is so detrimental that when I was supposed to talk a CIPS course in Germany in German in Berlin, I wanted to see whether I can do it in English. And he said, Christel, don't forget, half of our people grew up with Russia. They don't know enough English to listen a whole day to a seminar. So there's still a discrepancy. And it goes even further. I could talk a long time about it, because the pension in the East, the people get less money than the people in the West. So you can say that's not fair, but that all has to do with the history, and maybe again, after another generation or 2, it will be leveled out. Next. So there are different regional markets. And, you know, while Germany is very small compared to the US or in Florida, but we have different markets in Florida also. Miami being stronger than maybe Panama City. Those are the 3 main regional markets, not only for real estate in general. It is Berlin, who is the capital of Germany. And they are known for being a rental area. Less than 50% own property, the rest are renting. Why are they renting? Because the government is supporting the tenants much more than they are reporting homeowners. You cannot get rid of a tenant. It will take years if you want to evict somebody, which is a good marketing tool for you. If you're working with a German investor and you can tell him how fast you can get rid of a tenant in Florida, they will be very, very much in favor of making the purchase, because that's not what they're used to. Munich is probably the wealthiest city in Germany, and not only because of the Oktoberfest, but just in general. When Germany was, after the war, divided, most of the big companies like Siemens and Bosch, they all moved their position from Germany to Munich. That's how Munich became really much stronger in Germany. And it's certainly the wealthiest city in the whole EU. You know that many countries in Germany joined into the European Union, and Munich is definitely the wealthiest city. But you cannot forget Frankfurt. Frankfurt always has been the center of the banking system, and it still is. And it's a business center of Europe. So those are the 3 pillars in Germany with the most important, highest economy. Needless to say, the pricing in real estate Munich and Frankfurt, the prices are much higher than in Berlin, but because Berlin is still lagging from the war situation and being rebuilt. But Berlin would be the place to invest with a better chance of making money, value on the properties. Next. So what do you need to know about the economy in Germany? They were hit very, very hard in COVID-19 because everything was closed for 2 years. The schools, the companies, people were not allowed to leave the apartments. If they didn't have a garden, they were really stuck in the house. So they're recovering slowly. And it is really very, very hard for them still. If you buy property, real estate, there is a transfer tax. And the tax is different where you live. It's less, at the moment, it's less expensive in Berlin than it is in Munich or Frankfurt. And it's a tax paid by the buyer, and it's based on the purchase price. Now, what you also have to understand, that if you have ever traveled to Germany, you know that for every piece you buy, they tell you how much of the purchase price is VAT tax. That is value added tax. And in each European country, it's a different percentage. It's 19% in Germany. And the real estate agents who are making a compensation, they have to pay 19% tax on their income, besides the income tax. That's what our government wants to do too, but so far we were able, through our RPEC concentration, to stop them to start this. So 19% on everything. And by the way, if you travel to Europe or to Germany, and you're buying very expensive goods, you can ask the merchant to give you a statement how much the VAT tax is. And when you leave back to the US, you can get a refund, not the full amount because they want to make some money too, but you can get most of it. So if you want to consider what the income tax is in Germany, you don't pay any income tax up to 11,000 euros. So that's about 900 euros per month. You don't pay anything. And then afterwards, it's staggered from 14% up to 42% progressively. And if you make more than 66,000 euros, you're taxed 42%. That's a big chunk. And 66,000 is not that much. So the tax is definitely more than we are used to pay. And you cannot deduct the mortgage interest rates from the taxes. Next. So if you have American clients who want to purchase properties in Germany, no problem. If they have cash, there's absolutely no problem. It doesn't guarantee them residency or citizenship, but they have very strict financial rules for foreign people. The down payment has to be about 40 to 50%. And the loan to value limitation is 60 to 70%. So if you're rich, you can do it. And if you have cash, there's no problem. Now, if you are buying a property and you're renting it out, you certainly have to pay a non-resident German property tax return. But we all know that if you make income anywhere, you have to pay income tax. So there's really no difference. There are many people who are investing investment properties, especially in Berlin, where still is a chance to grow the value and renting them out, because the rental market is on one hand very strong. On the other hand, there are so many restrictions for the landlord. And if you consider that the buildings are in downtown Berlin very, very old, it costs a lot of money to make those buildings green or energy efficient. So there are a lot of investors who are shying away from the restrictions to put money in to make them up to date. But it still is a good investment for renters. Next. So I told you about the mortgage requirements for non-residents. For the Germans, it is a much easier thing because their interest rates are less than ours, although they were 1% for many years. So for the Germans, it's a high interest rate, but if we compare it with ours, it's fairly low. But they are typically giving only 10-year or 20-year mortgages. So the lesser interest rate is for 10-year mortgages. And if you go for a 20-year mortgage, you pay a little bit more. But it's very stable at the moment. There's not much change. And it's standard in Germany to have a 10 or a 20, 20-year mortgage. So the banks, I couldn't get a mortgage in Germany anymore because I'm too old. The banks prefer to only give you a mortgage that the term ends before you reach retirement age. So now you can extend your retirement age from 65 a little bit, but if you're really older, there's no chance that you can get a mortgage. So you do have to have cash in order to buy home ownership in Germany if you're older. But most Germans have a very high savings account. As I mentioned earlier, they're saving a lot. And if you have a good income still, you can still find a bank who gives you a loan. I can tell you the German banks are very strict. When I was still living in Germany, I had a lifetime employment with the government, and I had a very good salary. But I was divorced with 2 children, and I had the hardest time finding a bank who would give me a loan. But that was 40 years ago, and I think the idea of a divorced woman was very negative way back when. And if you had children on top of it, it was even worse. And there are now discrimination laws in Germany, which is something you have to understand and mention to them when you list a property with a German, that we have very strong discrimination laws here in this country. That's totally new to them. Next. So now we come to the way how they do business. To become a real estate agent in Germany, it's very easy. You go to the government, they run a criminal background on you, and you pay a little fee and you open up your corporation, and voila, you can sell real estate. There is now financial, they have a program, Schufa, where they find out some financial problems you have, but normally they don't have credit reports like we do, like we are used to. So now you open your company and you hire some people to help you, but they are all employees. So they are now independent contractors in Germany. So if you refer business, you do want to make sure that you're talking to the owner of the corporation, even if you like to do business with the one particular agent. But they're employees, they cannot pay money, they cannot receive money. So it's a different concept. So the companies really work the same like us. And while it is very easy to open up a corporation, I have to tell you that the majority of German real estate agents, they call them Immobilienmakler, they are very well educated. They usually have master degrees in business or in international business. They definitely have a very good education, better than some of the American real estate agents who don't even know how to write the contract. But everything else is pretty much the same. They don't have an MLS system at the time. I have been told that in June at their annual meeting, they will introduce an MLS system, but it will not as complex as ours, but it's a good start. So some of the other countries like France has already an MLS system, and Germany is now catching up too. Hopefully it works out. But they do have websites like this was one where they advertise their listings. That's really the same. They are all a little bit more stiff. If you watch a video, how someone is walking through a property, but they're very conservative. But it's still the same. And here's just one for you to look at. And I translated it on the right side. So that's probably what we would say too, comfortable home with history close to the River Rhine, and a link to the website. And just to give you an idea, this particular property is sold for $384,000, and it has 4,530 square feet. So just one little example, but that's all the same. And as you know, Realtor.com has all international properties. If you want to look for a property in Berlin or Munich, just go on Realtor.com/international and look for Germany and find some houses and some prices. So that's all possible for you to find. Next. Michael Schick has a large office in Berlin. And he was the president of the German.
Markt für Mehrfamilienhäuser in der deutschen Hauptstadt zeichnet sich durch eine ganz hohe Stabilität aus. Der Zinshausmarkt oder Mehrfamilienhausmarkt ist eigentlich der größte in Deutschland. Er hat so einen Anteil von knapp 20% am bundesweiten, am gesamtdeutschen Wohninvestmentmarkt. Und der Markt, ehrlich gesagt, ist gekennzeichnet durch eine tolle Seitwärtsbewegung, also Preisstabilität in den letzten 2 Jahren mit einer ziemlich hohen Kontinuität an Kauffällen, also an Verkaufszahlen, immer so 160, 170 Verkäufe von Wohn- und Geschäftshäusern pro Quartal in 2024, aber auch in 2023. Und das macht diese hohe Stabilität aus. Viele private Käufer nutzen diesen Markt, aber auch viele private Familien, die jetzt mit großem Wertzuwachs veräußern, bewegen sich heute im Immobilienmarkt. Und ich denke, Mehrfamilienhäuser in Berlin bedeuten sowas wie Sicherheit in unsicheren Zeiten. Für private Eigentümer ist ein Verkauf eines Mehrfamilienhauses in 2025 aus mehrerlei Gründen attraktiv. Wir erleben viele Verkäufe von Eigentümern, die beispielsweise keine große Freude an der energetischen Sanierung haben. Die dann sagen, wir haben die Immobilie jetzt 20, 30 Jahre gehabt, aber so eine komplette energetische Sanierung, die wollen wir nicht machen oder vielleicht trauen wir uns die auch nicht zu. Wenn Eigentümer heute auf ihre Immobilien schauen, die dann professionell einwerten lassen, dann stellen sie häufig fest, dass der Wertzuwachs von Immobilien ziemlich groß ist. Ganz häufig ist das das Doppelte oder Dreifache dessen, was sie ursprünglich mal für das Haus bezahlt haben. Und nach 10 Jahren ist der Veräußerungserlös ganz häufig steuerfrei und das ist natürlich besonders attraktiv. Und dann kommt auch noch mit dazu, dass für ältere Eigentümer es eigentlich interessant ist, Liquidität vielleicht auch für die nächste Generation vorzuhalten. Und nicht immer ist es das Gleiche, wenn man die Immobilie, sagen wir mal, mit 45 Jahren bewirtschaftet oder mit 75 Jahren bewirtschaftet. Also alles hat seine Zeit und manchmal ist dann einfach auch der Moment gekommen, wo eine Immobilie dann in vertrauensvolle neue Hände gehört, weil dann einfach damit auch ein Stück weit Arbeit abgeschlossen wird. Diejenigen Käufer und Investoren, ganz häufig sind es private Akteure, die in Berlin nach einem Mehrfamilienhaus suchen, stellen natürlich fest, die Wohnungsnachfrage in der deutschen Hauptstadt ist riesig groß. Der Neubau kommt bei weitem dem Bedarf nicht hinterher. Und das ist natürlich eine sehr gute, attraktive Ausgangslage. Bei genauerer Betrachtung des Immobilienmarktes stellen diese Kaufinteressenten dann fest, dass die Preise eigentlich noch nicht wieder gestiegen sind. Das heißt, es gibt eine sehr gute, breite Auswahl, ein reichhaltiges Angebot an attraktiven Mehrfamilienhäusern, Preise noch nicht gestiegen und damit eigentlich eine ganz tolle Möglichkeit, heute zu guten Konditionen attraktive Objekte zu kaufen. Und da ist nicht nur die Rendite gut, sondern auch die Rendite auf das eingesetzte Eigenkapital. Und das macht den heutigen Käufern ziemlich viel Freude.
Michael Stick was the president of the association in Germany, the Real Estate Association in Germany. And he was many times at NAR conventions, and his perspective was based for Berlin. So, and he mentioned also that people hold on to their properties. At this time, I want to mention to you that most Germans buy the house and die in the house. They are not selling and buying new. They don't move a lot. They keep the house for their children. So there's not that much fluctuation. And that's why most real estate agents are mainly doing business commercially. So each office is commercial, residential, and property management all together. They are not separated like with us. So they're really just doing both at the same time. Okay, now let's look at the transaction flow. And that's something you really, really have to understand. Real estate is transferred totally different in Europe, in Germany, in other countries of the world than in the US. And it's up to you, if you're working with a client from another country, to educate them. You know, it starts very simple, that they don't know the MLS system. They don't know if you're licensed in Florida, you could literally sell them anything in Florida and you have access to all the listings. So you better sit them in front of your computer and show them what access you have, because they're used in Germany to sell their own listings. So they're used to go to a real estate office, and if they don't find anything, they walk out and go to the next real estate office and hope that they have a property they would like. So translating it to us here, if you have a Coldwell Banker and next door is an office from Keller Williams, and you're talking to the client, you're with Coldwell Banker, and you see they walk out and they walk in next door to Keller Williams, then you didn't do your job. You didn't explain to them that you have the same access like the real estate agent next door to all the properties. So that's something you have to just understand and keep this in mind. So if you're a real estate agent and you're selling your own property, you usually have a buyer base on your portfolio, and you're reaching out to all your buyers to hopefully one of them will find interest in the property you just listed. And once you have verbally agreed on the price and the time, then you go to a notar. And that's not a notary. We'll talk later how to become a notar. The notar is the person who is writing up the offer, overseeing the whole progress to closing, making all the inquiries about the taxes and inspection and transfer the funds, and ultimately records the ownership with the courthouse. It is totally different if you consider you're a real estate agent, if you just consider you have this buyer, he agrees to buy it for XYZ, and now you are out of it. Somebody else takes over. It is so different that when I had a friend from Germany, she had her own real estate office in Freiburg, and she won the lottery. She came to America, opened up her brokerage company, and she is in Naples now. And when she was here for a year and I was traveling to Naples, I made an appointment with her and I said, so tell me, how do you like it? And she said, oh my gosh, it's so much work, because she wasn't used to it. Once she had the buyer, she could give everything to the notar and she was pretty much out of it. But the negative part is that if they are going to closing, they might not get paid at closing. They might have to send a bill to the seller to get paid. And then they have to pay 19% on the compensation. So it's a totally different ball game. Next. Oh, I forgot to tell you that at the closing, you know, like we used to be, we all used to sit all at the table, which I really miss because I always had a bottle of champagne and some glasses and we celebrated. And now it's each party separately. In Germany, the notar is reading the whole contract verbatim before it is signed by all parties. So the role of the notar, any long-time attorney who has an established office could be appointed by the government to be a notar. That's the way you become a notar. And those are the money makers because they do all the contracts commercially. They do the last wills, the estates, the real estate contracts, and their fee is a percentage of the value of whatever they are notarizing. So he is the one who controls the transaction. He is making the contract, sending the contracts to the parties, give them 2 weeks to review it, and then does all the things we are doing as a realtor, the inspection and checking out the mortgage and staying on top of it. And he will transfer the funds, similar like our title companies. And then there is the courthouse, which is registering. Actually, before he can close, he has to send the document to the courthouse, and the courthouse is checking whether everything is according to the law. And once they agree on it, he can do closing and he can transfer the funds. So that's a totally different thing. So going back to you as a real estate agent, if you're working with a German client, you better make sure that if they are signing their name to the contract, that this is the legal binding contract, because there is no notar involved. And you never want to compare the notar in Europe or even South America with the notary public. I'm a notary public. What can I do? I can notarize a signature and I can marry you on the beach, right? But that's pretty much all I can do. And the income I get is $5, $10. But that's not what a notar is all about. So explain this to your client for sure, that they understand you have contingencies in the contract, but you have to make sure that there is, this is the binding contract. Next. Now go a little bit into the mentality of the Germans. And I can talk negative about the Germans because I'm German, so I'm allowed to do this. So they're very detailed orientated. So I had a call from a German off my website, and he asked me a couple of questions. So I answered them very diligently, and I thought, I guess I'm done. I got another email with 5 more questions. And that went on and on and on. Eventually, he bought something, but they need to know a lot of information. And they're taking their time digesting what they hear and ask more questions. So don't think that they want to avoid you or that they're not serious. That's just their mentality. You know, we sometimes think if we have an engineer, they are very detail orientated, or the people from India are. So think about a combination of an engineer from India. That's probably how detail-oriented the Germans are. They're aware of the risk. And if they want to make a long-term decision to buy an investment property, they will take their time. And you do have to get their trust first before they want to do business with you. So if you answer their questions, they start trusting you. If you are honest, they can tell you whether you're just making a story. And, you know, we in America, we have 24-hour contingencies, maybe 48. That's not the way the Germans like to do business. I had sold a condominium in Fort Lauderdale to a German couple. And 3 years later, there was a short sale. And it was a bigger unit, a nicer unit, and the price was much less what they sold, you know, they bought for. So we wrote a contract on a short sale. It took the bank, you know, anybody of you who had done short sales, you know how long it took. It took the bank about 5 months to give us an answer. And he was already saying, well, what's going on? We got a counteroffer after 5 months, and they wanted to have an answer within 48 hours. And my German client said, they must be crazy. I waited 5 months and they want to have an answer from me in 48 hours? No way. He didn't buy it. He still regrets it. And even though I understood his mentality, I was unable to calm him down and say, let it just go. Let's do it. It's a good deal. And thank you, Antonio. You're totally correct. He was telling me on the chat room that the Germans are punctual. We have the saying, if you're 5 minutes early, you are on time. If you are on time, you're late. And it's still true. It's really amazing. And it's not only Germany, the Swiss are the same. Not the Spanish people and the Italian and the Portuguese, but the Swiss and the Germans are really, you want to be on time. So I have clients from Switzerland, and whenever they're here in the country, we're going out for dinner. And I said, okay, I'll pick you up at 1 o'clock or it's 5 o'clock. And make sure that I'll be there 5 minutes early. And they opened the door, looked at their watch and said, oh, you're on time. So it's really funny. They are so adamantly with the punctuality. So keep this in mind. They have to trust you, I told you, before they do business. And if you want to talk football, they have no clue about the rules and what it is. Even if you talk about Super Bowl, they don't know. They only know soccer. And that's true for most of the South American countries too. So soccer is their football. And you also have to understand that if you are going out to lunch or you're playing golf, that's a social event. That's not a business event. They don't like to mix that. So if you have lunch and you have a good time, talk about personal things, not the business. Okay, next. Okay, they are very familiar with going cross country because now that the European countries are all in the EU, but not every country is using a euros, but they all use the metric system. If you look at the little red spots on the bottom map, those are the only countries in the world who don't use the metric system. And you see to the left, it's just America, the US, and then some tiny little other countries. So you better be familiar how to change square feet to square meters, because they come to you and they said, well, I want to buy a place with 120 square meters. And you're thinking, oh my gosh, what is this? So the easy conversion is 1 times 10. So if you have, what did I say, 120 square meter, you multiply by 10 and you know they're looking for 1,200 square feet. the real conversion is 10.7639, and you can use your cell phone to multiply. When I started in real estate, there was no cell phone. You really had to rely on the multiplying by 10. But if you have, and you can just quickly multiply by 10 or divide by 10, you know already what they're looking for, and it will be impressive. And when you have the certain property, then you can do the real math. So you have to understand how to convert money. And I'll talk a little bit later about this, taking a CIPS course. That's where you learn all the to easy convert money that you are familiar with it. But when I grew up in Europe, in Germany, there was no European Union. Each country had their own currency. And when I traveled from Germany to Spain, I had 3 or 4 different currencies in my wallet. So that's now all over, but they're more easy to convert currency. Now, you don't need to speak the language to do business in Germany. Please keep this in mind. Some people think you always have to speak another language. You can be very successful in global without speaking another language, but it helps. And if you look at the January 2025, the top 10 people who searched properties in Miami was Germany. Germany is very active. They're looking for a lot of investments. So Punta Gorda is not Miami. Delray Beach is not Miami, but I still do a good amount of business with Germans. Next, please. The one thing why Germans may not come to Florida anymore is the long flight. You know, Antonio will smile. It takes him only 2 hours and a couple minutes to fly to Portugal. And they have sunshine too, but it takes 9 to 10 hours to fly to Florida. And as the Germans grow older, they consider selling their property and then find another way. They love Florida, but the sun in Portugal or Italy is just as nice. So just keep this in mind. And we do have a lot of Germans who are selling right now, all the servant because of this flight. It's a long stretch to fly, 10 hours. And if you can spend here more than a week, it's okay. But if you have to go back very quickly, it's difficult. Next. I want to leave a couple minutes for questions, but this is probably the second last slide. So I hope you got to understand a little bit about the Germans. And I want to now go a little bit into options you have. NAR has a very strong global department, and we are having global ambassadors for all the kind of countries. Manuela Hendrickson from the West Coast. She is currently the global ambassador to Germany and Austria. And Corinna is the ambassador for Portugal. And then you have 6 global coordinators who are helping those global ambassadors. But NAR has 110 bilateral partners in about 80 countries. So if you ever look for an agent in another country, reach out to NAR Global. You can find somebody because you want to know that you can trust the agent also to trust them with your client. You don't want to lose your client over it. There are 132 plus global councils in 30 states in the US. So, and you are one. So my first suggestion for you is, if you are from Punta Gorda, join the global committee. That's your first start to get successful in global. And we have about 44 ambassador associations at the moment, but NAR is not looking to increase those at this time. You can become a member of a foreign association. Like I'm a member of the German association. IVD, Immobilien Association of Deutschland. And I guess Antonio is a member in Portugal. That will help because you have access to all the members and you get all the information, the updates on a weekly basis. So that's the one suggestion I have. If you have made a decision, you want to do business in one country, join their association. And France is at the moment offering you to join for free. So there's a good possibility. Another thing is if you're really serious about global business, get your CIPS designation. It gives you the comfort to do business globally. Doesn't matter which country it is. You know the different cultures. You know that you have to be reacting a little bit different to some countries. Like I told you, in Germany and Austria, punctuality is important. If you deal with Jamaica or Brazil, you have to build in 20 minutes to 30 minutes to give away. You still might be punctual, but you have to wait for the others to chime in. So each country is different, each culture is different, but if you have the designation, it makes you aware of what it takes for you to be a good global realtor. And I think I want to stop here and leave some questions for you. Della, you are unmuted. Della, unmute yourself. Okay.
I always forget to click that button. So thank you so much for today. Does anyone have any questions? If you'd like to unmute and ask Christel direct. Any questions?
I wanted to ask a question. This is Anita Lambert.
Hi.
Hello there. Do you have any, or which is the most common area of Germany where Americans might be buying? Do you have any idea statistics?
Yeah, it depends, commercial or residential. Commercial, definitely the big cities like Berlin, Munich, and Frankfurt. Residential, they might enjoy close to the river. And if you have a castle to sell, that's what Americans are really looking for. I can't hear you.
You said more like in Frankfurt area, or you said more along the rivers? You said
The rivers, yeah, more, yeah, more scenic areas.
Okay, or maybe Munich.
Or small cities too, you know, because the ownership in small cities is bigger than tenant. But in the big cities, you have more tenants than homeowners.
Mm-hmm.
So
okay, all right.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question too. This is Rachel.
I didn't hear you, Mariana.
I was just very curious about the energy efficiency that in the little YouTube video that he was talking about, people, you know, maybe go ahead and sell their property instead of doing the updates. What are they doing to improve their energy efficiency in those houses? Is there anything that you can share about that?
Well, the government has very high rules of improving the energy efficiency. And it's, you know, the older the houses, the more expensive it is to change the plumbing and the electricity. You know, if it's a newer house, it's no big deal, but it can go in the thousands to make the update, and people might not have the interest in doing it. So they give up the place and sell it.
Thank
They're very
you.
strict, the requirements. They also, now I just heard a report yesterday that the government now wants to restrict how much money a landlord can make on the rental. So they have rent control to begin with, but now they want even to restrict how much income they can have. So it's really very, the government is supporting the tenants. So that's why they are having more tenants than home ownership. And if you own property, you cannot deduct the interest or you don't have any benefits. So it's just a different mentality.
Thank you. Emily's with us today from Philadelphia, and she wants to know if you can share where most of the Asian investors would buy in Germany.
Say that again.
Where
Where they
would,
want to buy investment?
yeah, where would Asians, where in Germany do they typically buy? Is there a central location for them?
The big cities,
The big
Hamburg,
cities.
Frankfurt, Munich, Berlin. That's where they are looking for investment properties. Yeah.
Thank you, Chantel. How about the residential versus commercial for Asians? Are there any opportunities for Asians to buy commercial buildings or some corporate companies?
Oh, sure, you can. There are big communities, as you heard on the video. I would recommend Berlin not because I'm from Berlin, but the prices are still below Munich and Frankfurt. So the chances of making more benefit would definitely be, or even if you can go outside Berlin, that's a very good investment.
Great, thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
Mhm.
And Cynthia says her family is from Austria. Do you know if the market is very similar there?
Well, the transactions are very similar, but they're even stricter. I was at a seminar last year in Austria, and in the small villages, they don't really allow short-term residency. And the mayor is the one who can evict you if you don't live there long enough. So they are very, very stringent. And I just, since you talked about Austria, Carla just reminded me that in March, I think, in March or April, is a FIAPSI World Conference in Vienna. So if anybody wants to get more information about it, they can reach out to either Carla or myself. But Vienna is an awesome place to visit.
Yes, absolutely. Rachel wants to know what types of mortgages are typical in Germany. I know
For
you covered
Germans,
that.
For
Yes,
Germans or for non-Germans? For
Rachel?
Germans, typical is 10-year mortgages and about 3.5% interest, but you have to pay 20 to 30% down. They don't have foreclosures that much because the people invest much more money. You know, if we would be required to put 20% down, we wouldn't have that many foreclosures either. It's really the loans with the minimum money or no money down who are getting in trouble.
And Antonia wants to know if there's any property transfer tax.
Yeah, that was the transfer tax I mentioned, which is different in each region in Germany, and it goes between 3.5% and 6.5%, and it's paid by the buyer. And what I also wanted to mention, the commission, I cannot give you percentages, as you know, but they're very similar to what we are having. But there is a new law in Germany, but let's put it this way. For 40 years, it was always the buyer who paid the full commission. So it was very easy to get a listing agreement because the seller didn't agree to pay anything. And about 3 years ago, the government changed the rule and said, you know, they have the same problem like we have here with compensation. The government made a rule that both parties have to share the commission, but it has to be equally. So if you say you're paying the one seller a little bit more than the buyer, that's not allowed. Then the seller has to reduce his commission that they're equal. And while the agents were upset at the beginning, it works out fine. But now they're splitting the commission equally.
Interesting. Okay. Do we have any other questions? I think I covered everything in the chat.
Could I ask one more question, please? This is Anita Lambert. Christel, when's the next IVD International Conference? Do you suggest Florida Realtors?
Unfortunately, I have to tell you, since NER changed the time for our meeting in Washington, D.C., they always are at the same time. It's in June 16 and 17.
Oh,
it's
okay.
mid-June. So I'm planning to leave early from NER to jump over to Germany. But that's a good point. It's very good if you can go to one of those seminars. And they're planning to have it this year in Erfurt, which is a city in the former DDR. And they're having the meeting in a football stadium or soccer stadium. So very interesting. It will be a lot of fun. And they usually have a fun night and then 2-day meeting, and then it's done.
Yes.
And you're saying which city is that?
Erfurt, Erfurt.
Oh, Erfurt. Okay, got it.
And that's a beautiful city too.
And you know that you could also, they have all the regions. They have 4 regions in Germany, but they also have their annual meetings. So last year, because I couldn't go to the main region, I went to the region of Berlin-Brandenburg in October. They are different times. And that's sometimes nicer because you have a smaller group, you get more contact.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay.
Antonio wants to speak.
Yes, go ahead, Antonio.
Loving it. And I love the fact that this webinar is multi-generational. I see Sabine, daughter and granddaughter, right, on the call. So I love that. And so I hope you didn't get too much snow down in Destin in that area, because I think we probably got some of the rest of whatever you guys got, because we're feeling it here today. And so, but anyway,
Cold,
great.
but
Thank
no
you for the
snow.
presentation.
Very good. Does anyone else have questions, comments? If not, thank you again so much, Christel. We appreciate it very,
No
very
problem.
much.
I hope your global committee is growing.
It is.
It is.
Thank you, Christel.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you,
Thank
Christel.
you.
Bye. Thank you, Della.
You're welcome.